The Liberal government is facing new threats over its controversial Bill C-18. Tech giant Meta says it will block Canadian news from its Facebook and Instagram services if proposed online news legislation passes. The act will require it to pay publishers for links or content it doesn't post. Google, meanwhile, is already testing restrictions on news content in response. Pablo Rodriguez is the Minister of Canadian Heritage. He's in Edmonton. Minister, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
You've said this latest statement from Meta, they're resorting to threats. Are you taking these threats seriously?
Of course we are, but our first choice will always be to sit down and discuss. And Meta and Google, they all know that my door is always open. They have my cell phone. We met in the past. My team is talking to them on a regular basis. So I'm open to discussions, but I will not accept threats like that. That's unacceptable for Canadians.
Okay, so you're open to discussions. Does that mean you're open to changing C-18, that you're willing to do something that doesn't expose Meta to what they consider to be an unacceptable risk here?
Meta, the bill is in the Senate as we speak. It went in the House. It was debated for a long time. The Conservatives filibustered for hours and hours in a very disrespectful ways. Now it's in the Senate. We'll see what the senators do. But the important thing for us is that to create a system that is more fair. As you know, David, over 460 newsrooms disappear in the last years. You know, papers, big radio stations, small ones, television, this and that. So this is bad for our country. This is bad for our democracy, because 80% of all the revenues, online revenues, are going to two companies, Meta, Facebook and Google, and it has to be more fair.
So what if this isn't simply a threat or posturing? What if this is a plain statement of intention? Do you have a contingency or a backup plan if tech giants like Google and Meta do pull the plug on news content?
Well, they did try this in the past in Australia. They came back under the decision, and it's a business decision to have to make. They're making billions of dollars in Canada. So if they have to make the business decision, if they want to get away from that, I don't think so.
Well, but they would be leaving the news component of Canada. Are you saying they're making billions just on news links in Canada? Because I don't think the companies would agree with that.
No, but they're making a lot of money. It would be nice if they showed the numbers instead of putting them all together with, international revenues. I'd be curious to see exactly how much money they're making in Canada. They won't tell you, because they know it's a huge number compared to what they would have to contribute to a local journalism. But personally, I see it as a threat. I think that Canadians see it as a threat. Basically, they're saying, listen, we're in a monopolistic situation. 93% of the people that search online use Google. So I'm going to use my power to threaten you and do whatever I want. And David, I don't think that's acceptable in a society.
Okay, so Google's business model includes the scraping of the internet for information to build search engine databases, and they make their money that way. But Facebook users post on it. So under the way your current bill is drafted, if I take this interview that we're doing right now and I post that on my Facebook page, Facebook then has to pay the CBC. Why is that the way you're doing this? If Facebook didn't pull this from the CBC's webpage, they didn't post it, why should they have to pay my employer for something that I chose to do as an employee?
What you do now, David, talking to me, you've prepared that interview. There's someone in front of that camera. There's people that did some research that helped you prepare the interview. You have the whole infrastructure. All of this has value. And you cannot have a company saying, I'm going to use that, but not give you a cent. And some companies may have deals already with Facebook and Google, but a vast majority don't. And we want to make sure that not only the big players, but mostly the smaller players are including regional media, big or small, in cities and regions. That's extremely important because, again, our newsrooms are closing. That's bad for our democracy. We have to do something right now.
I agree with you that the decline of news, in particular local news, is a bad thing, across the Western world. I just want to know why this is the path you've chosen to try to solve this. Because using the example of me posting this interview, Facebook didn't do that. I would have done it. So what would stop the CBC, which already gets a big subsidy from the government, from just hiring a bunch of employees whose sole job is to take clips and post it on Facebook with the intent of just generating revenue and bleeding money from Facebook?
No, because what's negotiated has nothing to do with the number of clicks. It's not about the clicks. It's an overall. It's an average that they have to come to a conclusion. Like what we do is, I want this to be arm's length, right? I'm the Minister of Canadian Heritage. I don't want to have anything to do with this after we pass the bill. It's like putting a table in the middle. The tech giants on one side, Google, Facebook, and the news ecosystem on the other side, and they negotiate and they come to a conclusion. If they don't come to a deal, then there's a final arbitration with neutral arbitrators will decide one side or the other. But I don't want the government to have a say in this, to intervene in this. I want this to be neutral. This is a road we took, and I think it's the right one.
So is your goal in this, sir, to have the tech companies sit down with media and journalism organizations and negotiate a set amount each year, or is it a set amount per link, a set amount per clip? I mean, what exactly does the model look like?
It's never, David, it's never per link or per click. It has nothing to do with that. It's for them to sit down at that table and to negotiate a fair amount. And that fair amount will be determined by the CRTC if it's fair or not, and they can still negotiate. At the end of the day, if they don't come to conclusion or deal, then they go to a final arbitration.
Okay, but right now they're talking about not even wanting to sit at this table, and Facebook is arguing that media organizations being able to post their things on their service for free has value to the media companies and gets them exposure and extra eyeballs. If they walk away, as Google and Facebook is now saying, you're going to have a search engine that doesn't deliver Canadian news links, and you're going to have one of the biggest platforms in the world with no capacity for a lot of organizations to post on it, and it's going to cut off larger segments of their audience. I mean, are you prepared for that outcome if that's where this goes?
Well, when they say that this has value, that for them to post stuff for you or other media, it's true. They're absolutely right, and that has to be part of the negotiations. Now, they said exactly the same thing in Australia. The exactly two same companies. At the end of the day, they struck a deal, and I would say almost 100% of news outlets in Australia, big and small, have a deal with one or the other, which is great news. It reinforces the democracy, reinforces local, regional, non-partisan, neutral, professional news, which is exactly what we need. Is this era of disinformation. We need a stronger news system that is slowly disappearing, and it has to stop.
Well, if the Australian model is the right one, because the criticism from these companies and some other experts is that your legislation goes beyond what Australia did. Why not just mirror what Australia did exactly if it worked so well there and they came to a solution that both sides could live with and thrive under?
We want more transparency. I mean, I like the Australian model, but we had to tweak it a little bit because, for example, in Australia, my counterpart, the minister, would decide which platform would be included, which media would be able to negotiate. I don't want to have anything to do. Again, it's arm's length. I come from a family of journalists in Argentina. That independence is absolutely fundamental. So I don't want to be the one that decides who negotiates what and who is included in the bill. I want a set of clear rules that are set, and if a platform falls into those rules, well, they're captured by the bill. And if the media are included in a set of criteria, then they're able to negotiate. So it's really arm's length, and that's the way, in my opinion, it has to be.
Okay, but that's kind of jumping ahead a little bit because there's a fundamental negotiation about the bill, if it goes through, when it comes into effect, in what form, and whether or not these companies will continue to operate in Canada, at least as a marketplace for news content under these existing rules. So you say you're open to, I mean, have you reached out to Facebook, to Meta, since they made this announcement on Friday night? Are you trying to set up a meeting with them to find out if there is a path forward to address those concerns?
Well, not in the last few days. I'm actually in Edmonton for the Junos, but if they want to meet with me next week, I'm ready to meet with them. My team is meeting with them on a regular basis. That's been my philosophy from day one on this bill, on any other bill. You want to talk, we'll talk.
Okay, so what's the deadline then, sir? Just as a final question, like I know C-18 is being studied in the Senate, but when do you hope to get it fully passed through Parliament, and when do you hope to have it come into force?
I hope as soon as possible, because this has been delayed by the Conservatives in the House. I expect they don't do the same thing in the Senate. 2/3 of the elected officials have voted in favor of this bill to send it to the Senate. I'm looking forward to be there and to speak with senators about the bill. I want to thank them in advance about what the study. But at the end of the day, media are disappearing in Canada, David. We
Right.
need to act now.
No, I understand that. But if the Senate proceeds quickly, is there even enough time, I wonder, for you to sit down with Meta and to sit down with Google and get this resolved?
Well, a lot of times the companies have the perception of something, and it's when we sit down that things are clarified, and they come out of this to say, well, you know what, maybe it's not that bad. Hopefully, they think this of the bill, but the essence of the bill, David, it's very simple. It's making sure that our newsroom stay alive, they stop closing, because our democracy is getting weaker because of that, and this revenue is going to those multinationals on a daily basis. So we can't have that anymore. We want them, we need them. They're important. They play an important role, but they have to contribute to this new system that they're using without contributing.
Okay, Minister Rodriguez, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, David. See you.